What's good, everybody? Time for a DL short. Now, look, I know it's Friday. I know you guys are out there working hard, busting your butt. Some of you are looking forward to the weekend, so you only have to work one job instead of the three jobs you're currently working, right? It's like, oh, it's Friday. So Saturday and Sunday, I only got to work my one side hustle. I don't have to work all three of my jobs, right? So I know you're busy. You don't have time to scour the newspaper media and the mainstream media and the cable news networks and YouTube, but I do. And that's why I'm here. I'm just gonna keep finding these little stories and putting them out here, and hopefully, uh, it'll help you guys. It'll help the rest of us out here to come up with a plan to deal with this recession that some say isn't coming and some say is. I've never seen such a polarization when it comes to this kind of thing, right? Normally folks are like, yeah, they pretty much in agreement. This is going to happen, and it's going to be like this, or this is not going to happen. And but you have a camp of people looking at data, looking at reports, and saying this is going to happen. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a bad recession or worse. Then you have people on the other side who are like, nope, this is going to be great. Nothing to worry about here. I've never seen this before, y'all, ever. Ever. Mainstream media will have you believing, and the talking heads will have you believing it's going to be a soft landing and there's not going to be a recession. The recession fears are off. Then you got the other side, right? Where you got George Gammon and you got Michael Burry. Michael Burry is betting that Wall Street is going to crash. He has shorted. He's put some bets out there. He's put his money where his mouth is. He's like, yo, I'm betting billions that it's going to crash. It's going to be a hard recession. And you got people like George Gammon, shout out to him, the rebel capitalist. Is like, look at all this information. I don't understand why people are ignoring decades and decades and decades of data points. But here we are. It's definitely going to be recession, guys. And again, I'm no talking head. I'm just some old dude sitting in his attic talking to his computer who reads a little bit and listens a lot. So here's the latest. Right? Here's the latest. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. Tiny bank called Republic First faces test of depositors' faith. Unlike First Republic's Republic First customers have stayed loyal despite battered balance sheets. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that this bank's about to collapse, right? Remember, we're talking about two different banks. So, the name of this bank that's about to collapse is Republic First. But they're going to be talking about the bank that already collapsed out in Silicon Valley, which was First Republic. So here we go. First Republic's bank's collapse this spring was a watershed moment. Now, a much smaller lender called Republic First is a FRBK, that's his ticker on the NASDAQ. Bank is in financial purgatory, a case that may test regulators and turn the idea of too big to fail upside down. So right off the rip, they're letting you know this is serious. First Republic, I'm sorry, correction. He got me because the two banks are like identical. Republic First, a Philadelphia lender with $6 billion of assets, shares many of the problems that sank San Francisco based First Republic. Those include heavy paper losses that don't get counted on its balance sheet under the accounting rules and will wipe out its equity or net worth if they did. Both banks tried and failed to raise capital. That's so huge right there. That paragraph right there is so huge. Because remember when all this started, these are one-offs. These are one-off. Silicon Valley, Signature, First Republic. These are just one-off. Pac West, another one-off. No. And they all have the same issues. They all have, this bank has $6 billion in assets, right? But that does not include heavy paper losses that don't get counted on its balance sheet under the accounting rules and will wipe out its equity or net worth if they did. How many more banks are in this situation? A lot. A lot. This is just the beginning. So far, Republic First has managed to live on, and its depositors largely have remained loyal. Deposits as of June 30th were down just 10% from a year earlier. However, investors have fled. The stock was delisted last month from NASDAQ. Deposit flight was the proximate cause of the demise earlier this year. First Republic and two other major lenders. So when the bank problems happened out west, the depositors, like the people who had extra bread or whatever, was taking their money out because they were worried about the FDIC caps. 250,000 caps. $250,000 per account is guaranteed, is backed by the government. Any other money in there under your account is not guaranteed. So back in June, a lot of people left, but a lot, not everybody. Not everybody. So they've managed to live on to this point. But the in this paragraph, what got me is the stock was delisted last month from NASDAQ. No one's been talking about that. American banks are teetering. American banks are having issues. An American bank on the East Coast in Philadelphia gets delisted from NASDAQ and no one talked about it. Maybe I missed it. Y'all know that's not my wheelhouse. Republic First financial difficulties may put the faith of depositors to the test. About 60% of its deposits were uninsured as of June 30th. If regulators closed the bank without an acquire someone to take over, in its place to take over, that could mean significant losses for uninsured depositors. Regulators have said that such a failure could spur runs on other banks. It's coming, y'all, and they know it. They know it. This is a huge problem. No one knows what the fix is. None of us, regular folk, none of us in the bottom 99 know what the fix is. The 1% know what's going on. The politicians know what's going on because they're getting their orders from the 1% and they're carrying them out. It goes on. Should we be rethinking what it means to be systemic? The answer has to be yes. And this is from Lawrence J. White, an economics professor at the New York University and former banking regulator. With Republic First, we're just worried about pure contagion. The uninsured depositors at Republic First running and then causing an uninsured depositors at other somewhat similar banks running, and then the contagion grows. Yeah, of course, he's right. That's what happened with the market crash back in the 20s. That's what led to the Great Depression. That started it, that sparked it, and there was no more credit after that, and then everything just shut down. Right? The bank is about 0.2% of the size of JP Morgan Chase by total assets. But the notion that regulators might perceive systemic risk in even a pint-sized bank failure is no longer implausible. The proportion of uninsured deposits in the U.S. banking system peaked in 2021 at 46.6%, their highest level since 1949, and fell slightly in 2022, according to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Now, people who follow this, people who know banking, they understand it. Almost half the money in the system is uninsured. Think about that. Almost half the money in the banking system in the US is uninsured. If there were some sort of crash or some sort of run tomorrow, by Monday, half right, half of that money would disappear. Poof, gone. 46.6% to be exact. Poof, gone. You don't think that's going to have an adverse effect on the economy? The announcement of a resolution in which uninsured deposits are not fully protected may create concern among uninsured depositors at other banks, the FDIC said in the May report. Right? So the Fed knows this. Janet Yellen is keenly aware of what's going on. Again, they know what's going on. They know what the problem is. They see everything coming. They see the storm just slowly walking its way in. They see it. And what's the 1% done? They built their shelters, right? And what I mean by that, they moved their money. They took their money out of the Trust me, the 1%ers don't have any of this unsecured money out there. It's those people trying to get to the 1%. That 46.6%. Those are people, small businesses. They're out there just doing their thing, doing things by the book. They're working the way they think they're supposed to work. They got payroll. They got these pretty nice sized businesses. Where else they can't just do their business, their daily business with $250,000 or less. They have to, you know what I mean? Accounts they would need just to handle their payroll. So they have extra money in there. And I'm pretty sure you can buy insurance for that, but that's expensive, right? Additional insurance. This is crazy. The FDIC insures deposits up to $250,000 per person per bank. If a bank fails, depositors whose accounts are above the limit face potential losses. And this is what they keep talking about, run on banks. Initially, when the FDIC announced Silicon Valley Bank's closure, the first of this year's 3 regional bank failures, it said uninsured depositors wouldn't be fully protected. The news sent shockwaves through the financial markets and helped accelerate the run at Signature Bank, whose future just days after Silicon Valley's collapse prompted the government to back uninsured depositors at the 2 banks. Correction, and it was like at Signature Banks, whose failure, I said future as correction, whose failure just days after Silicon Valley's collapse prompted the government to back uninsured depositors at the 2 banks, right? So Silicon Valley Bank had problems, right? And remember, the Silicon Valley Bank's problems came after, correction, Silicon Valley was first. Silicon Valley Bank's problem caused a run on Signature Bank just a few days later, because people were like, hey, man, the government's not going to cover this money, this uninsured money over this amount, over that $250,000. So people just rushed to get their money out. Once the government saw that happen, the government came out and said, Janet Yellen came out and said, no, we're going to protect everybody's money no matter what amount is in there. Right. So because they watched these 2 banks go pretty quick, and then the 3rd bank got into a lot of trouble. Right. So yeah, so Silicon Valley collapse prompted the government to back uninsured depositors at the 2 banks. First Republic failed 2 months later and was bought by JP Morgan Chase. So under the rules that everybody's accepted and that has been established, anything over $250,000 is not insured. You have to get separate insurance for that. If that's the thing. I don't know. I'm not in that business. I'm sure someone will sell it to you, but it'll be a lot of money, right? So when these banks collapse, that uninsured money was supposed to just be gone. But the government stepped in and said, no, 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 no. That's when people were talking about the backstop. That's a soft bailout. That's what they did. Silicon Valley, Signature Bank, and then First Republic failed, but the government got involved and brought JP Morgan in. JP Morgan Chase, too big to fail, giant bank, made them a sweet deal. They came in and bought this bank and all the good assets for pennies on the dollar. All the bad stuff the government had to eat. That's what they did. Right? Before the 2023 bank runs, it would have been hard to imagine that losses from one tiny bank's uninsured depositors could spur runs at other banks. After Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank failed, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen invoked an exception under federal law for systemic risk, allowing the FDIC to guarantee all of their deposits. She later told lawmakers that such rulings would be made on a case-by-case basis and could include smaller banks if there was a risk of contagion. So what did she do? She came out, she told all the banks, don't worry. Don't worry. Why did she do it? Right? She certainly doesn't have the money to back it up. If 3 or 4 banks collapse today, the Fed can't cover all that. There's not enough money in the FDIC accounts to cover all that. Like I said, backstops, bailouts. The banks made mistakes. They went out here and screwed up. All these banks have these funny balance sheets. All these banks have unrealized losses. This commercial real estate thing is a ticking time bomb, and it's about to go off. These little bitty pops are going off here and there. These little firecrackers are going off, but the big thing, the big nuclear bomb explosion, is about to happen pretty quick. Pretty quick. So in May, Republic First Bancorp, the bank holdings company, said it would stop making interest payments on its debts. Like it's insolvent. It could back in May, it was insolvent. It couldn't make payments. Earlier this year, it tried and failed to raise $125 million to shore up its finances, right? It tried to raise just like the other banks did, couldn't get the money. Its stocks now trades for 30 cents a share on the over-the-counter marketplace, and its stock market value is 21 million, right? Remember at the beginning of this article, it said it was $6 billion bank. Now it's worth 21 million. It can't, it's over. Republic First total equity or assets minus liabilities was 103 million as of June 30th, according to its quarterly report with banking regulators. However, it excludes $304 million of unrealized losses on bonds that it labeled held to maturity, which means the losses don't count on its balance sheet. The losses are the result of lower bond values, which decline when interest rates rose and could rebound if rates fail. So that math right there does not math at all. First Republic is saying that it's worth $183 million as of June 30th, but it's $304 million in the hole. Bad business dealings. 304 million in the hole. So you're only worth 183 million, but they owe 304 million. Tell me how that maths, bro. They got a problem. They got a problem. So they're saying this bank is going to fail. The bank has already failed. It's already insolvent. It can't pay its debt. It can't raise any money. Right. And it's just a matter of time. I can't believe it. I can't believe that their customers haven't left. Maybe the customers who are there they're all under that $225,000 limit because they said all of the big money's already left. That's crazy. First Republic still hasn't filed audited financial statements for 2022, which it blames in part on its former executive team's failure to maintain adequate internal controls. For regulatory purposes, the bank said it was well capitalized as of June 30th. Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic Bank, all were deemed well capitalized shortly before they failed based on their reported regulatory capital. So they're singing the same song that everyone else is saying. Ain't nothing to see here. Everything is fine. What iceberg? We didn't hit the iceberg. Don't worry about that water. Don't worry about all that water that's raising up past your ankles up to your knees. We're fine. Don't worry. That's what they're saying. Who's buying that? Who is buying that? Republic First, which operates local branches under the name Republic Bank, declined to comment. So did the FDIC and the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, which is the bank's primary regulator. Everyone's quiet. What's the first thing you do when things go bad with your crew and you're in the street doing bad things? You get your story straight. You get everybody together. You tell everybody to shut up. That's what you do. It's the first thing you do when you go out there and something go wrong. Went out there and got loud, and hit the wrong person or some innocent person got hit, whatever. What's the first thing you do? Get everybody together. Hey, y'all, let's get our story straight and everybody shut up. We ain't even going to tell our story until we have to. Wait for the subpoenas. Everybody gets a card. Here's the lawyer. Here's the lawyer's card. Here's the number right here. When the police come and get you, and they will. When the feds show up, and they will, give them that card. I have nothing to say. Please call my lawyer. Now, of course, they don't need a lawyer, but they have one. But they're basically like, everybody shut up. Everybody shut up. The bank is not saying anything. The FDIC, the feds aren't saying anything, right? The Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, that's the people who regulate these banks in Pennsylvania. They're not saying anything. They all know what's going on. The article goes on and talks about Vernon Hill. He's the colorful banking entrepreneur. That's the guy who owned the bank. He got in trouble with some stuff. It's like a little side note or whatever. Just some eccentric rich dude. And something about him getting in trouble with making some sort of deal for his wife's company to come and do some design stuff, and then his wife's company winds up suing him when he steps down from the bank. There's some weirdness. I'm gonna link this in the description below if you want to read that part of the article. And then it goes on to say that there was a small group of investors back in August 29th, who make up just about, they have like less than a 10% stake in the bank. They were trying to raise capital again. They're trying to get money up, right? So they have this investment group, they're trying to get money up, but they're not talking, and it doesn't look like they were successful. And then the article ends with a deal to inject fresh capital into Republic First, if that's possible, would be a dream scenario for bank regulators. Their best hope is that Republic First is a survivor. And that's the end of the bank. That's Jonathan Will over at Wall Street Journal. That's what's going on. Another bank is teetering. It's not a question of is it going to fail? It's when are we going to call it? It's one of those, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, when you're on life support, but there's no brain activity, but you know, everything else is still going deep, 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 but there's nothing going on here. That's it. When do we call it? That's all it is. It's like, okay, when do we call it? Why isn't this like big news? I'm not seeing this anywhere. I'm not seeing it on Fox Business. I haven't seen it on like C-SPAN and all that kind of stuff. I haven't seen it. The only place I've seen it is on Rebel Capitalist. George Gammon was talking about it. And I'm going to have that video linked in the description. Please check it out. Please check it out. Ken McElroy is another guy out there, real big in the real estate space, rental markets. He's talking about not this, but he's talking about what's going on with the economy overall. He had a video talking about the doom loop. He did that months ago. And mainstream media is just now talking about the doom loop. Hey, y'all. I mean, I know what you're thinking. You're like, look, I don't have that kind of money in the bank. I'm just out here trying to survive. I got my 3 jobs, right? I'm living paycheck to paycheck. What does this have to do with me? Well, if it starts if it breaks apart at the top, best believe it's going to filter down at the bottom. We're going to feel that pain more than anybody. The people who get wrecked the most are the people who are most vulnerable. If you're down there towards the bottom, you're going to get wrecked the most. Who's going to get squeezed the most? The middle class. The middle class. Right? So I just want to share that with y'all. It's getting crazy. I'll do my best to keep my eye on it. When I see stuff, I'm just going to come up here with a deal short and I'm going to share it. I hope that helps. I hope that helps someone out there. Hope you guys are paying attention. Do me a favor. Do your own research as well. If you hear anything, hit me up. Send me a comment. Hey, DL, check this out. Let me know. Yeah, this storm is going to affect each and every one of us. So let's get out there, try to get prepared, guys. Get your cash up. You might want to take some money out of your bank. You know what I mean? You might want to go ahead and sow some money in the old mattress. All right. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.